2023, ninth graders, freshmen, you in the house? Way back there, way back there. Sophomores, you ready for avoiding a sophomore slump? 10th grade, can I hear you? Juniors, are you ready for the hardest year of your life? And do I have seniors in the house? Do I have unbelievable. Welcome to Evergreen, where we do things just a little differently. We start, everything here is just a little bit different. Let's talk about your summer briefly. Let's just talk about your summer briefly. Just by the house lights stay down, so just by a show of either screaming or applause, who goes to camp? Who goes to camp? Are there people who decided to stay in Houston because of the lovely weather? Let me hear. Come on, not everyone leaves. Oh my God. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay. I know that I frequently show pictures of Colorado, and I always make this joke about Jews in Colorado, and this year I'm not going to do it. Okay, fine, I will. So, let me just say one thing. I did this thing. I don't know what that's about. If it's making you sick, imagine how I feel. Anyway, so you guys have probably heard of artificial intelligence. We should probably kill that light, because it's flashing. I feel like I'm in a disco. If I start dancing, it's going to be a bad opening ceremony. If you take, now we're just going to kill it. Now we're just going to show you that, the exit sign. There's the exit sign. If there's a fire, that's where to go. Run, all 500 of you at the exit sign. I don't know what we're going to do with that. I just told all the performers something will go wrong, just wait. And sure enough, I didn't expect it to happen this soon, but here we are. There we go. All right, so we'll make this work. Now it's that young man. We don't know what to do about that light. All right. All right, just ignore that light. It's going to end at some point. No? There it goes. The light is over. We did it. No? Oh, here we go. There we go. All right, now it's done. Well done. Okay. So, if you have heard of AI, you probably know something about AI. We might end up talking about AI. If you type in Israel in Colorado, next slide, this is what you get. Next slide. On a graphic AI, they put the Dome of the Rock in the mountains of Colorado. That's not where it is. Okay, next slide. So what I want to do is tell you about something from my summer that was not related to Colorado. I did go to Colorado. It's true, I can't avoid it, but it's not what I want to tell you about. I want to tell you about a trip that I had to Mexico. And I'm going to tell you that no one in the history of humankind has ever compared me to Albert Einstein. Ever. Never. Next slide. Okay, that's Albert Einstein. No one has ever compared me to him. But they might start doing so for this one reason. Next slide, please. So, I took my twins to Mexico, and they had both gone to camp. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of them, perhaps both, said, "Oh, Dad, we learned how to sail at camp." Okay? I said, "Awesome, great." We got to Mexico, and on the very first day, we didn't have anything really planned, so I said, "Hey, since y'all know how to sail, let's go do that." And they're like, "Yeah, because we know how to sail." So, we said to the person running the sailing operation, "We'd like to sail." And he said, "Okay, buena suerte, good luck, buena suerte, good luck." And he just sent us off, okay? And so we were going, and it was great, because we had a strong wind, and we were going. Then the wind died down, and we stopped going. And I said, "Hey kids, we should probably turn back, because the land, the shore, is way behind us." And they're like, "Okay." And they started fidgeting. And they said, "The sail's not working." And then I said, "What do you mean the sail's not working?" And they're like, "Well, the wind's not working." Okay? And then I said, "Do y'all, what's," and then the tension began to rise, and then the infighting began, where one of them said, "I thought you knew how to sail." And they said, I do, just not this kind of boat. And I said, wish we'd have known that about half an hour ago. And then, so it was getting a little tense. Were there sharks? No. Were there tears? Yes. All right. So the fighting and the tears were happening, and we're just floating. And finally, of course, someone from the shore noticed us, and they sent out a motorboat to tow us in, right? Fine. Were there people on the shore laughing and pointing? And did they think we'd be embarrassed? Yes. However, was I embarrassed? No. Next slide, please. Because Albert Einstein, and this is an absolutely true story, when he was at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, he would go out and sail. And what do you think that happened to Albert Einstein every afternoon? He would get stuck. Because even Albert Einstein could not figure out how to pivot and how to sail. This is the greatest physicist, one of them, and Oppenheimer too, in our time. And so they would tow him in, and they would say, oh boy, there's Professor Einstein. So here you have, next slide please, for the first time ever, that's right, Bucky, Dow, and Einstein all are about the same level of sailing aptitude. Now, thank you very much. Next slide. Now you're thinking to myself, why did you tell that story? And the answer is, I don't really know. However, what I'd like to do is talk about what we do on this day that makes it a little bit different, how we start the school year just a little bit different. Obviously, opening ceremony, there's all these students and faculty and colleagues who've spent a lot of time preparing. So you're going to hear songs, and you're going to hear talks, and you're going to hear messages and ideas, and they're all actually meant not just to entertain and engage, but to communicate a message that we will come to throughout the year. And it's under a guise of a theme, of course. Every year there's a theme. So years ago we did something about We're All in the Band, right? We did one about vision. We did something called Hineni, which is Here I Am. We did Namaste Emory, okay? It is true, as you probably know, that Dow loves acronyms, and I also love things in triplicate, right? So I talked about character, commitment, and community. I've also talked about being kind, honest, and hardworking. And last year, talked about the E standing for energy, empathy, and excellence. But this year, we're doing something that we've only done once before. It was back when these fabulous 12th graders were 6th graders. And the theme is not just about one thing. It's not even just about two things. It's not about three. It is about this. So, this year, that is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the power of we. We're going to unpack that from different perspectives. Let me start by telling you a story about back when I was in 7th grade, little Stu Dow, all right? Now, back then, elementary school went through 6th. So what that meant was, first day of 7th grade, I was going to a completely new school. So I was leaving Betsy Shuren, Jewish Day School. Any BY people in the house? Any BY? And this place didn't exist, and so I was going to St. John's to start 7th grade. And I will tell you, they had one of those end of summer, start of school year parties, right? Which are always sort of awkward and uncomfortable. And that is especially true if you are brand new, which I was. And of course it was about this time of year, exactly this time of year, right? Many, many years ago. And I still remember the name of the girl who hosted this party, Ellen Chernowski. And I still remember walking up the walkway to this big, older home in River Oaks and like timidly knocking on that door for the first time where I was entering this new community. And my hands had that super uncomfortable, gross, nervous sweat you have, right? When you're like, oh my God, I do not know anyone here. And so you put them in your pocket, and you're just like, no, hoping no one shakes your hand. And there were like maybe 2 or 3 people I knew who had come from Beth Sherman with me. And so literally we sat, and I still remember this. We sat on this big kind of red plaid ottoman, just looking around at all these other people who knew each other, had known each other for years. Most of them had gone to school since they were in kindergarten, right? And I remember there was like this wall of like 13-year-old blonde-haired girls leaning comfortably and just chatting incessantly, and like all the Jewish kids were just sitting there like, oh my God, what do we do, right? And I still remember this. But now fast forward. Though I wasn't from their neighborhood, I didn't pray on the same day or in the same way, definitely did not do some of the same things that they love to do, like on weekends they would hunt. That wasn't me, right? But within a matter of time, I went from being just me to part of a we. By opening myself up, to connecting with them, to hearing their perspectives, right? To taking some smart risks. I made lifelong friends, what I call brothers from different mothers, who for decades now have shared life's ups and downs. Next slide, please. This is a photo from 2 summers ago. And these are some of the friends that I met on that first day that I told you about. And this is a trip to Greece, specifically the island of Ikaria, where our friend Alex, who is Greek, his father was born. Sadly, just 2 months ago, so that was 2 years ago, 2 months ago, this same group of friends got together as pallbearers for Alex's dad's funeral, right? And it was part of life. He was 87 and he had lived a hard but happy life. We were there to honor Alex's father and to support Alex. This morning and throughout the year, what I want you to think about is you are not just at a place called Emory, you are part of a place called Emory. It's a place that will give you the same opportunity to create these kind of lifelong relationships if you open yourself up to them. It's a place where you will not only be able to support others, but be supported, to love others, but to be loved, to go from being an individual me to be part of a we. Please now, let's welcome a bunch of your classmates for our first song. I think you'll recognize it. Come on out, guys. We got Bella Phillips singing on vocals. We got Claire Perry on vocals. We got Evelyn Burt also on vocals. Layla Nuri playing bass. Zach Robinson on guitar. Mike Levin on guitar. Aiden Cohen on guitar. And Sonny Bell on drums. Give it up, Bill.
Told you life was gonna be this way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like I've been there before, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too.
Okay. They will play them, we're just not yet. We have two special speakers for you right now. One is SGA President Senior Audrey Hotchkiss. And following Audrey will be our middle school 8th grade math teacher and chair of math department, April Bernard. So we give it up for Audrey and then Ms. Bernard. April, Audrey.
Growing up, I've always been very independent. I started packing my own lunches when I was in 1st grade and cooking my own breakfast in 2nd. I would organize my own playdates after school, and I started forging my parents' signature when I was 7 because I didn't think my parents actually needed to look at and sign my homework planner. 7-year-old me wanted to be able to handle her homework and her homework schedule all on her own. By the time I got to middle school, I scheduled my own doctor's appointments and made my own dinner reservations, and to this day, this independent mentality reigns true. While brainstorming for this Power of We prompt, I thought about everything I do in and out of school. In school, my least favorite assignment is group projects. The sport I've chosen is running, where I run isolated from a team. Out of school, I'm a picky eater, so you can find me eating alone at my favorite restaurants. And I even attend most of the high holiday services alone, just because of the way the rest of my family practices. For me, though, the Power of We is my choice to be independent. While I hate group projects, I'm never turning in an essay before it gets peer-reviewed. I race and compete alone, but the girls' cross-country team collectively experiences getting kicked out of the locker room by the football boys together. Without my teammates coaching me on the sidelines of my race, I'd be minutes slower. And for every restaurant that aids my picky eating, there's an entire staff that knows my order by heart. And, after services, Rabbi Strauss is pouring my Passover Seder wine glasses, with parental supervision of Mr. Dow. At the end of the day, my independence is made by my community. We does not mean that I have to crave togetherness all the time. There are so many ways to be a part of a collective, and each is not only valid, but necessary for the good of the group. The power of we is not diminished by my independence, but amplified by its inherent versatility. I struggle to pinpoint a specific moment where I utilize the power of we, because I'm always utilizing my community, sometimes inadvertently and sometimes directly. While my pastimes feel independent, I'm surrounded by a supportive community in every independent choice I make, and that is when I feel the power of we the most. Thank you.
The power of we. That is a big one. Existing as a minority in America, we test this concept repeatedly. Sure, it is easy to participate in the we moments that produce the good endorphins. The we in the food, the we in the music, and even the we in rallying together in response to disasters. But what about the we that causes stress and anxiety? What happens when I'm part of the we that has to contend with tough issues? What happens when we are asked to reason with the outcomes of American history? I have noticed when I'm in these situations, a negotiation within myself takes place. A negotiation of how much of me do I bring to the collective we? Is there room for me there? And if not, what parts of me do I leave behind? One of the most obvious contenders in this negotiation is the American construct of race. I am from South Louisiana. Now I'm a case study for the African diaspora. My DNA mimics the routes of the 400-year-long transatlantic slave trade. It's my DNA somewhere. To bring this to present day, my grandma, who was alive and well, wasn't allowed an education past 8th grade. My parents, both alive and well, are listed as colored on their birth certificate. My father, a retired reservoir engineer, attended a segregated elementary school. I will spare you of the many anecdotes that I have experienced within this intentionally devious construct of race. However, I will ask that you consider how this shows up as we harness the power of we. Although just one aspect of the many components of me, I can't afford to pretend that this part of me doesn't exist. Particularly in America, this construct is unavoidable. So, is there space for me to bring this to the table, or do I leave it behind for the comfort of others? Without intentionally creating space for each other, there is really no we. There is simply a group of people standing next to each other, smiling for a photo. There is no doubt in my mind that we are better together, and there is tremendous potential in harnessing the power of we. However, I'm skeptical in regards to if we understand how big of a task this will be for each and every one of us. By choosing to be aware that people simply need space to exist, space to bring their truths, space to bring their full selves, and that space needs to be intentionally created in order for us to become a powerful we. In the small moments and in the big moments, what are we doing to create space for others to show up fully? What parts have you left behind to fit neatly in the collective we? As we embark on this journey and harness the power of we, which we will, I ask that you think about it. Are you creating space for others to show up fully? I encourage you to be a better friend, to study deeper, to seek to understand, and to strive to enrich your lives and the lives of others and harness the power of we.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you, Bernard. I want to add just a little Jewish perspective to the powerful comments that Ms. Bernard just made. The Torah commands us to love the stranger. Over and over again, we're told to love the stranger. And you know why we're told that? We're told that to commemorate our existence as strangers in a strange land, that is Egypt. But long after that, we were strangers in Europe, kicked out of every country and nearly exterminated by one. And even today, in the United States, we see this alarming normalization of anti-Semitism. It's upsetting, and it's distressing. So it is our moral imperative, deeply rooted in Jewish tradition and our own people's experience, to be welcoming and inclusive to others, especially those who are discriminated against, who suffer prejudice, minorities of every kind, in the larger society, but also in the smaller communities. We can't do global tikkun olam without starting in our own house. So this year, I ask you to make a personal and collective pledge that we make Emory a safe space for everyone. Now, let's pivot. One of our annual traditions that's part of OC is that I go out onto the streets and I interview random people about our theme. It's called Dow Hits the Streets. It's a little silly, but there's always some really thoughtful answers. You'll see that in just a second. This year I was not apprehended by security, so I thought that was a plus. Special thanks to my colleagues Melissa Marinsky and Alicia Lux, who were helping till the very, very last minute. So now here is this year's version of Dow Hits the Streets.
Good morning, Emory Weiner. Head of School Stuart Dow here. 2023, August of 2023. It is so insanely hot. I don't know why we live in this town. So this video, as you know, historically is called Dow Hits the Streets. Okay, so I'm on the streets of downtown. You know what? No one's here. No one's on the streets. Do you know why? Because we live in a furnace, in an oven. It is not sensical. Anyway, okay, it's our home. We love it. Let's move forward. So, right behind me, that is called the Wells Fargo Plaza, 1000 Louisiana. Decades ago, that is where I spent my professional life. I am so much happier now at 9825 Stella Link than I was when I was here, despite the beautiful view that I had from that building, and I get to work with y'all and do a different kind of work. Anyway, so what's the work we're doing this year? Well, this year's theme, as you know, is the power of we. We, a community, a diverse, beautiful, inclusive, loving, supportive, sometimes challenging community, the power of we. And so now, this year, as I hit the streets, or more specifically go below the streets, because the one thing they have down here in Houston are tunnels. Why? Because it's uninhabitable on the streets. So people downtown who work here, they go underground in these fabulous tunnels. That's where we're gonna go this year to talk to people about this year's theme, the power of we. All right, here we go, into the tunnels. So when would you say is the first time that you felt like you were really part of a community?
Really part of a community, probably in my martial arts school.
Wow, tell me about that.
Well, so I started martial arts back when I was about, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old, and I've done it my whole life back in Beaumont, and that's basically the group of people that I grew up with, I competed with. Competition is a really big thing for me. I'm a coach too.
Yeah.
I really feed off of groups and teams and that kind of environment to create a family.
Honestly, I can't think of a time that I haven't had a community of people around me, either family or friends or connections, college, sorority, work, coworkers.
Talk to me about when you have felt part of a community and what it felt like being part of a we, a group.
It felt empowering. It felt I was enriched, supported. I felt valued.
I felt at a place where, people understood me and provided me with the resources that I needed to be successful.
Well, Hannah, let's start. What is your name?
Annie.
Hi, Annie. I'm Stuart. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Where did you get that balloon? That is an awesome balloon. Hey, you gotta come closer. I'm not.
Was bringing your kid to work today, and so they had to do fun things at Mama's work, and so I got to get a balloon.
Oh, that is excellent. What does your mama do?
She works for a company.
Yeah, okay. That's a good job if you can get it. When we're done talking, would you show me one move, please? Just one.
On the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just one. I just need one. Because I got 4 brothers and 3 kids. I gotta show something. You know what I'm saying?
You want to show them?
I don't want to hurt them badly, just a little. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's kind of dangerous.
All right. Every community faces challenges sometimes. How do you work through that?
Definitely elevating those concerns. I think you can't really solve a problem unless people know about it, and you kind of bring it up in a respectful way, of course. In order to voice that and for something to get better, you have to know what the problem is and try and get to the root cause of what it is and then tackle it.
As human beings, we're all complex, right? We all have different maybe viewpoints and different, things that life experiences as well that might mold us to be the person that we are.
What do you think is the most important quality in being a good friend? Like, what makes a really good friend?
Your friendship.
Yeah, and what should you do to make sure you have a nice friendship with other people?
Be nice to them.
You should be nice to them. Have you ever, though, gotten mad at a friend?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you want to talk about that or no?
No.
I don't blame you. When you got mad, it's probably something they did, right?
No.
What happened? And just between you and me.
It's about playing with my friends.
Uh-huh. Were they not playing nicely?
No.
Or did they like get rough with their hands or something?
No.
Did they not give you enough time on the monkey bars?
No.
Do you like the monkey bars?
No.
You don't? Who doesn't like the monkey bars, Annie?
I don't.
All right, fair enough.
feel like if there's a disconnect in any group where people are not communicating, there becomes an issue with being able to get a job done. Diversity, so whether it's diversity within gender roles or diversity within ethnic groups, or whether it's diversity in like your different areas of expertise, all those different types of groups can bring different experiences, whether it's professionally or whether it's just from their life experiences to the group to accomplish goals and get
That is well said. What's the most important quality in making sure that people still feel connected even if they disagree or they're upset?
Communication, 100%. Agreed.
Okay, JJ, that's your name, right? Okay, now hold on. You were just so loud and energetic. I need to see that JJ again, okay?
JJ.
There we go. Okay, JJ, what do you think is important to be a good friend? What do you have to be? What do you have to do to really be a good friend?
Be kind.
It's perfect. Okay.
Seriously, y'all been doing
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, slightly absurd. One PS on that last interviewee's comment about diversity. I also want you to think, by the way, I was talking with JVC about this, there are so many kinds of diversity, right? There is, of course, racial and cultural, religious and gender and sexuality, and all those are important to be sensitive to, as are diversities like neurotypical and who learns different ways, and who's strong in one area versus another, who's more athletic versus more artistic. So I want you to think about all of that and embrace all of that as we forge this week. Now, since this is all upper school students in this version of the opening ceremony, other than maybe the 9th graders, 10th through 12, you know that, or you might think that all I listen to is Elton John, which is of course not the case, but you might think that because of the annual Elton John Mahmad. Turns out I listen to lots of different music, and I like lots of different artists, from rock and classical to jazz. There's like a variety, and while it's true I've been to Elton John concerts multiple times, I've also been to some other phenomenal concerts. Been to Aerosmith twice, which was super cool. Grateful Dead, Ray Charles, Madonna. I've been to a lot of different concerts, but I want to tell you about a concert I went to this past summer. In addition to going to Mexico with my twins, I ended up taking my older daughter, Eleanor, to Kansas City, and I'll explain why Kansas City in a second. And I was privileged to attend what I think may have been the most astonishing concert I've ever attended. Next slide, please. Okay? So now, you may have heard of this singer. She's kind of in the news. Next slide, please. Okay? There's, oh no, next, go back, one more. Back one. There we go, beautiful, right? Okay? So hold on, before you start judging, which some of you are, I hear it, boys. Okay. Back in June, if you had asked me about Taylor Swift, I could have said, yes, I've heard of her. That would have been the end of the conversation, all right? I didn't know a single Taylor Swift song. Maybe I would have recognized it on the radio, but I certainly wouldn't have been able to identify it. But I knew that she was a big deal, and I knew that both of my daughters were slightly obsessed with her, all right? I knew that. I also knew that Eleanor was not going to be able to go to Mexico with the twins and me because of college stuff and gymnastics. She and I were going on a college trip. It was starting in St. Louis. So I looked at Taylor's tour and I thought, okay, well wait, she's playing in Kansas City the night before we're supposed to be in St. Louis. I'll just change a flight and see if I can get tickets. Okay, well that was a nightmare. Trying to get Taylor Swift tickets is nothing short of a nightmare. It turns out, if you haven't gone on this deep, dark journey, there is this underworld devoted to Taylor Swift. And it's dark, okay? It's dark. So I started signing up for things that I had never signed up before, okay? I was on Instagram, some Eras resale ticket tour. I was on Twitter. I was on Facebook. I was on TikTok. I don't do TikTok, but now I do, okay? I do Taylor Swift TikTok, all right? And all these fan groups, right? And then I'm posting and I'm having private conversations with people all over the world about I need Kansas City tickets for the 8th, all right? My brother at one point was in California. He said, why are you posting about Taylor Swift? I said, I'm not. Those are private messages. He said, no, they're not. All right? Like, damn, all right? So I'm trying to delete them. They may still be out there. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Anyway, so I had heard about all these scammers out there, right? These people who are going to pretend to sell you tickets, but they're just really stealing your money, right? So I, being a student of sorts, I read, how do you avoid the scammers, right? And I sort of, and I familiarized myself with their tricks so that I could avoid them, right? And it was extraordinary because these scammers are good. I don't mean good people, I mean they're good scammers, all right? And they're so smooth. So what do? For example, they engage with you, and they're so friendly. Oh, that's so sweet that you want to take your daughter on the 8th. Well, it turns out I have a couple tickets. You're like, woo! All right, great. And then they do things like they send you stills, and then they send you video of their little Ticketmaster thing, and you're like, oh my God, it's great. By the way, did you know you could take phone calls through Instagram? I didn't know that, but I got calls through Instagram from scammers all over the world, all right? So I'm sort of falling down these rabbit trails and these dark holes of scammers, and I'm not really sure. And every single time, by the way, because I followed this checklist about how to avoid being scammed, at the very end, by the way, they would always do the same thing. They'd say, oh, you have to pay me, you can pay me half, and then I'll pay you later, but you have to pay me through PayPal, friends, and family. And all the warnings were, don't do that. Use goods and services, because this goods and services has buyer's protection. And they don't want you to have buyer protection, because as soon as they have your money, regardless of how much it is, they're going to disappear. They're going to disappear. In this underworld of Taylor Swift, fake fans, I saw the epitome of selfish, dishonest, and not caring. It was the opposite of a culture and a community predicated on we. But in contrast to the scammers' world was the world that I then attended in Kansas City. Next slide, please. The concert had 70,000 people, admittedly mostly girls and women, but not all, in this stadium where there was like usually the violent game of football where there's boys and men. The contrast was sort of remarkable, but the community I was in on that night, there was the most positive, loving, supportive, empathetic, impassioned energy. It was electric, truly. And complete strangers talked and connected. They shared stories, and of course they shared friendship bracelets. I've got one now, all right? Mine says, if you look carefully, Swifty Dad, right? But as someone who has now listened not just to hours of Taylor Swift, remember I was on a college road trip with my daughter, I've listened to days of Taylor Swift, right? I know her stories, I know her songs, I know her albums, I know the darn Easter eggs, what are the Easter eggs, I know the marketing magic, and I do know her empowering social message. I am not embarrassed to say, stewed out Swiftie. So now, as senior Evelyn Burke performs one of Taylor Swift's more beautiful songs, Invisible String, I want you to think about that idea of an invisible string. I want you to think about the subtle chords that are not always visible, that connect us, but how everything we do or say impacts others and creates the character of our community. Please give it up to Evelyn Burke.
Green was the color of the grass where I used to read at Centennial Park. I used to think I would meet somebody then. Teal was the color of your shirt when you were 16 at the yogurt shop. I used to work out to make a little money. Time, curious time, gave me no compasses, gave me no signs. Were there clues I baby's presents. Gold was the color of the leaves when I showed you around Centennial Park. Oh, was the journey, but it brought me heaven. Time, wondrous time, give me the blues and then the purple pink skies. And it's cool, baby, with me. Isn't it just so pretty to think all along there was some invisible string tying you to me.
Ellen Bird, everybody. With Josh Scheinman and Patrick Clark behind them. Thank you very much, Mr. Scheinman and Clark. Beautiful, everyone. Two more speakers. Another member of the class of 2024. Please welcome Eli Carpus, who will be coming from this way. After Eli is done, Dr. Bruno Rios from our Spanish department will come next. Eli.
In December of last year, my mother and my stepdad of 10 years got divorced. Empty spaces appeared throughout my house as my stepdad and my step-siblings moved to a new house. There were times when I wanted to sit alone in my room and be sad, because this new reality felt so surreal. Though, during this time, I felt isolated. My family was still there for me and encouraged me to keep going. This uncomfortable feeling was and still is strange, but a constant remained during a time of unexpected variables. We as a family were legally disbanded, but we did not want to be separated. We knew that it would be best for everyone if we had stuck together. As a family, married or not, we are still together. We still have our regular family dinners and celebrate each other with positivity and love. We are just happy to be together, even if we share different residences. This has allowed me to succeed in ways I otherwise would have not. Now, I admit there are many times where I would rather sit in my room alone and watch TV. Whether speculating from a psychological or a statistical standpoint, when you have no desire to do anything, working together is better and benefits each one of us. So, even through the all-nighters we will have to pull, for the random English assignment due the next day, or the morning practices that we just don't want any part of, doing it together with our classmates, with our teammates, and with our friends is better than doing it alone. Here at Emory, there's always someone who can help. Friends, faculty, coaches, even Miss Tracy. We have all these resources available to us right here at Emory and in our community, so why not use them? So, regarding the power of we as a family, by blood, by team, by our friends, by our community, a first one, second one, a mixed one, we are stronger together. Each one of us has the power to control our lives, to be part of a greater we. The question is, will we? Thank you.
So, After helping me set up a room that became my own during college, Mom and Dad were heading home while I was staying in a new city, living by myself. We took 2 different cabs that day, me going to campus and them going back to the airport. At the light, coincidentally, my parents were still next to us. Through the window, I saw my dad crying, while on the other hand, I was happy to start a new chapter in my life. He was mourning something that I couldn't understand back then, but I only understand now. The unbearable fear that something has changed for good. The promise was always to come back, and I did. I came back every summer and during winter break. I still do. But every time, home became more and more uncanny. A place both the same and different, changed and unchanged in my memory. Eventually, especially after I moved to the United States, that unfamiliar belonging became a country. A place that is always an in-between. It's an odd thing, really, an irrational fear of losing that home for this one. After almost 2 decades after that summer in Monterrey where I started living on my own, I'm now becoming a US citizen this month. And that is weird as well. Question number 3 of the 100 in the naturalization test reads, the idea of self-government is in the first 3 words of the Constitution. What are these 3 words? We, the people. But my question is, who is that we? A we requires a them, a non-people, a people from a different place that is not here, a people from a different race that is not we. But belonging is like a shirt that never fits well. It's always too loose or too tight. And in the complicated history of this country and my own, I've mostly been in the them category. I was the odd kid in high school who liked metal and have mostly been, and preferred to read instead of going out, for example. The working class student in a wealthy private college, the Mexican who was questioned by customs and immigration almost every time, the other whose brown skin meant danger. There's this idea that we are automatically part of this imagined community, a sort of net that embraces us all in the same way, just because we live somewhere. That is obviously not true or not the case for the immigrant, the African American, the indigenous, the Jew. For us, this means a conditional performance of who we are, a we with an asterisk. But it is also this complexity what makes us part of a diverse community. What unites us is not our individual identity, but a duty to others, a common debt. We are with each other as long as we maintain that unpayable debt with our family, our friends, complete strangers. After all these years, I've also gained this home. A place where I've learned how to love my first home again. A place where I met my wife, and I got friends that still make fun of my English even though it is better than theirs. Here's where the only family I have is the people I choose to love, and gracefully they love me back for the most part. A place with all of you in it, my students, my friends, a country we're choosing to stay in.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. Thank you, Eli. So we are nearing the end, and before we close, before our last number, I want to share a few final thoughts based on 2 essays that I read this past summer. Next slide, please. One from Rabbi David Wolpe, and the other is from from philosopher and author David Foster Wallace. Here's what the rabbi wrote. After 26 years in the rabbinate, as I approach retirement, I've come to several realizations. All of us are wounded and broken in one way or another. Those who don't recognize in themselves or in others are more likely to cause damage than those who do realize it and try to rise through the brokenness. This is what binds together a community. No religious tradition, certainly not my own, looks at an individual and says, "There, you are perfect." Instead, it is humility and sadness and striving that raise us, doing good that proves the tractability of the world and its openness to improvement, and its faith that allows us to continue through shared values. In a rather remarkable college commencement address, David Foster Wallace tells this short parable. Next slide, please. There are two young fish swimming along, and they come across an older fish swimming the other way. The older fish nods and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" Two young fish just continues swimming. When one finally turns to the other and says, "What the heck is water?" Wallace goes on to explain that one of life's greatest challenges is not just to increase the awareness and the reality of our immediate surroundings, not just to notice everything that we tend to take for granted, but how to reset what he terms our default settings. Default settings. And the most critical of our default settings, says Wallace, is our tendency to be self-centered. Far too often, it is our perspective, our experience, that determines what we think, what we feel, and how we act. Think about it. Even in mundane circumstances, for the drivers in the crowd, when you're on the freeway and there's traffic, you tend to get mad at others because they are the traffic. But for the others, you are the traffic. Back to Rabbi Wolpe, he says, in a world that is so polarized, he writes about the importance of listening in order to hear and better understand those around us. He said it this way: we, who often don't even know ourselves, believe that we understand others, but we must always be reminded that each person is a world, and that the caricatures we see of each other on social media are just that, a small slice of the vastness and the complexity within each human being. And friends, that is particularly true in a community our size. If we follow both these gentlemen's advice, we can go from hundreds of disparate me's to a powerful collective we. One that takes advantage of and genuinely values all of the unique talents on this campus and provides, therefore we can provide each other more than just a social circle, but a source of strength and support that comes from being a family. And with that, our last tune, please welcome to the stage. We've got Claire Perry on vocals, we've got Bella Phelps on vocals, Evelyn Byrne on vocals, Elaine Toe, who had played keys before, is playing it again. We've got JVC, and among others, will be on vocals. Layla Nuri playing guitar, Zachary Robinson on guitar, Micah's on guitar, bass this time, you'll hear that. Aiden's on guitar, Sunny Bell on drums, and then you're going to have every other performer who's contributed sing, and you shall join them. I'll leave it up to you guys to take it from here. All right, now leave the stage. Would you please give it up for all these fabulous students and faculty? Amazing. I want to thank, there's a bunch of people who are behind the stage. The tech students are amazing. Please give it up for Alexis Schoetz, Toby Kimberly, Ben Robinson, Lorraine Goodway, Ethan Stolder, Shai Fransky, Caden Warren, Gray Warren, Amber Garza. You are awesome. Thank you for all your help. To all of my faculty colleagues, Kelly and Josh and Kathy and JVC, God bless you, and Matthew, and by the way, even God bless him, Walker Fair, even though he's retired, he was helping. Scott Labrie and Ivan, cannot thank you all enough for everything y'all do. Give it up one more time for everyone on this stage. Have a great 2023. Seniors, you got this. Let's go, everybody. Have a great year. That was fabulous. schools. First day's a little hard. First of all, let me hear 6th graders, you in the house. I need to hear some noise from 6th graders. Love it. Love it. 7th graders, bar and bat mitzvah year. Let me hear from you, 7th graders. And sort of seniors of the middle school, 8th grade. Let me hear it. Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's like a higher pitch than with the upper school, but that's a beautiful thing. All right, well, welcome. So let's talk about summer just briefly by a round of applause if you're a camper. If you go to camp, let me hear it. If you decided, you know what, I'm just going to stay in Houston. It is so lovely. No one? No one's staying in Houston? I'm the only one who got stuck in Houston? All right. Well, here's what I want to tell you. So I know summer is beautiful, it's wonderful. School is beautiful, wonderful too, it's just in a different way, right? It's always hard to transition, I get that. Every summer, I go to Colorado, and y'all always hear about it. Next slide. But this year, no, I'm not going to talk about Colorado. I'm not going to show you any pictures about Colorado. I always make a joke about Jews going to Colorado like it's Israel. I'm not going to make that joke this year, so we're not going to do that. Even though I did go to Colorado, we're not going to talk about that. Instead, next slide, please. And the next one. We're going to talk about that guy for a second. You know who that is, right? Everyone knows it. It's Albert Einstein. Exactly. So, let me just tell you that no one in the history of humankind has ever compared me to Albert Einstein. Never. It's never happened. Okay? However, that is about to change. I know. Let me explain why. Next slide. So, next slide, please. This was a trip I took not to Colorado, as you can see, but to Mexico, to Cancun, with 2 of my 3 children, my twins. I'm going to tell you what happened on this little excursion. Both my kids had gone to summer camp, and they came back, and they're like, hey, Dad, we know how to sail. I'm like, awesome, that's great, because I haven't sailed in, I can't even remember last time I sailed, but if y'all know how, that's great. So the first day in Mexico, we didn't have anything else planned, and they have boats that you can just take out, sailboats. And my kids were like, Dad, we got this. I'm like, excellent. So I sign my name. The guy says nothing. I'm like, do you know how to sail? There was no safety, nothing. Just good luck. We're not sweating that, okay? And we go out. So my kids and I get on the sailboat. And at first, it was going great. There was a strong wind. And with strong wind, you can sail. Boom, we went out. It was great. I was having fun with my kids sailing. And then the wind died down. And that's when the tension began to rise. Because my kids were like, okay, we can't really figure this out, Dad. I'm like, what do you mean you can't figure it out? I'm like, well, we're not going. I said, I see that. And they're like, we don't know how to turn it around. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to turn around because there's no wind in the sail? And then the infighting began, right? My crew, my great sailing crew, they began to go at each other, right? I thought you knew how to sail. Well, I do, just not this kind of boat. What do you mean it's a sailboat? Yeah, but it's a different kind of sailboat. And I'm like, oh God, this is ugly. Okay, this is ugly. There were no sharks. I want to assure you there were no sharks, but there were tears, okay? Tension and tears and anger and fear were beginning to rise, and I was just sitting there as the sort of naive dad going, this is not ideal. I think we'll be fine, as the shore was getting more and more distant, all right? Finally, someone from the beach realized, I don't think those people know how to sail, right? And so they sent out a motorboat, and they towed us in. Now, it is true that people on the beach were pointing and laughing. That point is true. However, Mr. Down was not embarrassed. I was not embarrassed. Why? Next slide, please. Because guess what? Albert Einstein, the genius of physics and the theory of relativity, right? Albert Einstein, in the light days of his professorship at Princeton, he would take sailboats out. And do you know what would happen to Albert Einstein? He would get stuck, exactly. Every afternoon, someone would say, oh God, there's Professor Einstein again. They can always recognize him because of the hair. He was there, he was a great physicist, he didn't know how to figure out the sails and the wind. So, ladies and gentlemen, now, for the first time ever, next slide please, this is what I have in common with not just Bucky, but with Albert Einstein. Thank you very much, all right? I need a little applause for that, that's a great thing. Now, you're like, okay, Mr. Down, what does that have to do with opening ceremony? And the answer is very little, maybe nothing. But why do we even do opening ceremony? We do opening ceremony because we want this place to feel different, right? So we want it to be kind of funny and informal and lighthearted and joyful, right? And we want you to feel that the whole year. But we start this year because we know the transition from summer to school is not easy, but it's not just meant to entertain. You're going to hear some amazing music. You're going to see funny video, right? You're going to hear powerful stories, and that's the point. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, it's supposed to be engaging, but there's also a message. There's a message that we hope you will take away and carry with you in your heart for the rest of the year. Now, that message always comes within the context of a theme. So, for example, many years ago, we did this thing called We're All in the Band, right? Years after that, we did something called About Vision. We did one about Hineni, which means Here I Am. We've also done one about Namaste Emory. So we have all these different themes, but the themes are just a way of helping you remember what the message is that year and carrying it with you in terms of what you do and say every day. Now, I happen to love acronyms, and I love things in triplicate, meaning three. So, for example, I used to talk about character, commitment, and community. We also talk about kind, honest, and hardworking. And last year, for 7th and 8th graders, you remember, we talked about the E. The E for Emory, what does it stand for? We said energy, empathy, and excellence. This year, we're doing something that we haven't done since our 12th graders, our seniors, were 6th graders. Only once. And this year's theme isn't just about one thing. It's not just about two things or even three. This year's theme is about this. It was really cool. I thought it was cool too. So as the lasers disappear into the logo, you'll see that this year's theme is the power of we. And for the next 45 or 55 minutes, you're going to hear music and stories and video that are all about that idea of the power of we. And I want to start by telling you a story that is a true story about when I was in 7th grade, right? So I had gone to Beth Yeshurun Day School. Let me hear, we got Beth Yeshurun people in the house? Right? So my daughter went to Schlenker many years later, but I went to BY, right? The early days of Beth Yeshurun. And back then it went through 6th grade. And after 6th grade, you had to find a school. And so my parents sent me to this new school called St. John's. And we had one of these, or it wasn't a new school, but I was a new student at that school, right? And this is important to remember. It was just about this time of year. Just about this time of year. You know, you have those parties, the kind of back to school, end of summer parties, and you always sort of have like a knot in your stomach, like you're not really saying, oh God, I mean, I love my friends, but this is awkward, and I haven't seen them in a while. And, well, imagine, of course, if you're brand new, what that feels like, especially if the students who are at the school, they've already been together. And in St. John's, they had been together since kindergarten. So we're having this party. I still remember, guys, and it's been a long time since I was in 7th grade. I remember the girl's name who hosted the party, Ellen Chernosky. I still remember. And I remember walking up the walkway to her house in River Oaks, this big old house in River Oaks, and I was like nervously knocking. I remember my hands, you know, had that sort of that nervous sweat you have sometimes, and so I kept them in my pocket because I walked into this room of students, and I knew basically nobody, right? I knew basically no one. There was a few classmates from Beth Yeshurun who were there also, and that's it. And guess what? You know what those classmates and I did? I still remember. We sat on this big red sort of plaid ottoman, and we just huddled together as all the other kids who knew each other were talking. I still have this image, this wall with all these like 13-year-old girls with blonde hair talking and laughing, and all like little Jewish kids from BY going, oh God, what are we going to do? How are we going to fit in? But you know what? Over time, we did. Even though we weren't from the same even though we didn't pray on the same day or in the same way, even though a lot of them did things on weekends that we didn't do, like hunt, we actually learned to be part of that community. We opened ourselves up, we got to know them, we heard about their experiences, they learned about us. I ended up making lifelong friends from boys I met that very first day at Ellen Chernosky's house. Next slide, please. These are some of those friends as we are now nearly 60, so many, many years later. This was 2 years ago, from a summer trip we took to Greece to see the birthplace of the father of my friend Alex, who's on the far right. 2 months ago, we got together again, this time, sadly, to be at the funeral of the father of my friend Alex. But that's what happens with friendships. You forge connections and you share in the life's ups and downs. This morning and throughout the year, what I want you to realize that you just are not at Emory, you are part of Emory. And this is a special place that will give you the same opportunity to make these kinds of connections. To connect, to be connected. To help, to be helped. To support, to be supported. To love and to be loved. From going from being just a me to being part of a we. And now, would you please welcome a bunch of fabulously talented singers who are going to sing our first song that is all about the message I was just talking about. Please welcome Bella Phelps, Claire Perry, Evelyn Bird, Layla Nuri, Elaine Toe, Zachary Robinson, Michael Evan, Aiden Cohen, and Sunny Bell. Please give it up. They've been working just for the last several days to start this first song. episode 4 times? All right. So one of the things we do is we ask students and members of the faculty to share words from their heart about the theme. And so now would you please welcome, first is going to be the student government president, who's a 12th grader, Audrey Hotchblom, and then after her will be a teacher who many of you know who is beloved in the middle school and the upper school, but she teaches in the middle, Ms. Bernard, our math teacher and head of that department. So poise first, Audrey, and then Ms. Bernard. Audrey?
Growing up, I have always been very independent. I started packing my own lunches in first grade and cooking my own breakfast in second. I would organize my own play dates after school, and I started forging my parents' signature when I was 7 because I didn't think my parents actually needed to look at and sign my planner. 7-year-old me wanted to be able to handle her homework and her homework schedule on her own. By the time I got to middle school, I scheduled my own doctor's appointments and made my own dinner reservations, and to this day, this independent mentality reigns true. While brainstorming for this Power of We prompt, I thought about everything I do in and out of school. In school, my least favorite assignment is group projects. The sport I've chosen is running, where I run isolated from a team. Out of school, I'm a picky eater, so you can find me eating at my favorite restaurants alone. And I even attend most high holiday services alone, just because of the way the rest of my family practices. For me, though, the Power of We is my choice to be independent. While I hate group projects, I'm never turning in an essay before it gets peer reviewed. I race and I compete alone, but the girls' cross-country team collectively experiences getting kicked out of the locker room by the football boys together. Without my teammates coaching me on the sidelines of my race, I'd be minutes slower. For every restaurant that aids my picky eating, there's an entire staff that knows my order by heart. And after services, Rabbi Strauss is pouring my Passover Seder wine glasses, with parental supervision, Mr. Dow. At the end of the day, my independence is made by my community. We does not mean that I have to crave togetherness all the time. There are so many ways to be a part of a collective, and each is not only valid, but necessary for the good of the group. The power of we is not diminished by my independence, but amplified by its inherent versatility. I struggle to pinpoint a specific moment where I utilize the power of we, because I'm always utilizing my community, sometimes directly and sometimes inadvertently. While my pastimes feel independent, I'm surrounded by a supportive community in every independent choice I make. And that is when I feel the power of we the most. Thank you.
Middle school, you are my people. So, the power of we, that is a big one. Existing as a minority in America will test this concept repeatedly. Sure, it is easy to participate in the we moments that produce the good endorphins. The we in the music, the we in the food, and even the we in rallying together in response to a disaster. But what happens when I'm part of the we that has to contend with tough issues? For example, when the we is asked to reason with the outcomes of American history. I have noticed when I am in these situations, a negotiation within myself takes place. A negotiation of how much of me do I bring to the collective we? Is there room for me? And if not, what parts of me do I leave behind? One of the most obvious contenders in this negotiation is the American construct of race. I am from South Louisiana, and I'm a case study for the African diaspora. My DNA mimics the routes of the 400-year-long transatlantic slave trade. It's my DNA, y'all. To bring this to present day, my grandma, who is alive and well, wasn't allowed an education after 8th grade. My parents, who are both alive and well, born in 1958, are listed as colored on their birth certificate. My father, a retired reservoir engineer, attended a segregated elementary school. I will spare you of the many anecdotes that I have experienced within this intentionally devious construct. However, I will ask that you consider how this shows up when we harness the power of we. Although this is just one component of the many pieces of me, I cannot afford to pretend that this part of me doesn't exist. Particularly in America, this construct of race is unavoidable. So, is there space for me to bring this to the table? Or do I leave these truths behind for the comforts of others? Without intentionally creating space for each other, there's really no we. There's simply a photograph of a group of people standing next to each other. As much as we like to believe that this is organic or a natural inclination, it is not. It takes work and commitment. There's not a doubt in my mind that we are better together, and there's tremendous potential in harnessing the power of we. However, I am skeptical in regards to if we understand how big of a task this will be for each and every one of us. By choosing to be aware that people simply need space to exist, space to bring their truths, space to bring their full selves, and that space needs to be intentionally created in order for us to become a powerful we. In the small moments and in the big moments, what are we doing to create space for others to show up fully? What parts of you have you left behind to fit neatly in the collective we? As we embark on this journey and harness the power of we, which we will, I ask that you think about it. Are you creating space for others to show up fully? I encourage you to be a better friend, to study deeper, to seek to understand, and strive to enrich your life and the lives of others, and truly harness the power of we.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you, Ms. Bernard. I want to add a comment with regard to Ms. Bernard's powerful comments from a Jewish perspective. The Torah teaches us, it states really clearly, and it says it multiple times, love the stranger. And you probably know why that is. That line dates back to when we were slaves in Egypt thousands of years ago. Of course, the Jewish people were also strangers in Europe, kicked out of country after country, one of which tried to actually exterminate us. And even now, in our own country, we see the frightening rise of anti-Semitism, where we're made to feel like strangers again. But we are told to love the stranger because, deeply rooted in Jewish tradition and our own experience as well, is the moral duty for us to be welcoming and inclusive, especially for people who have faced prejudice, have been discriminated against, minorities of any and every kind, in a big society and small here too. We talk about Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. Well, we can't go do that at some global level if we're not making this place, Emory, a safe place for everyone. So please keep that in mind every day that you're on this campus. Now, let's pivot. As you might remember, if you're in 7th or 8th grade, every year, what do? I go out to the streets of Houston and I interview strangers about our theme. And so I want to thank two colleagues, Melissa Berinsky and Alicia Lux, one of whom is brand new, who just went downtown with me for this year. And by the way, I was not apprehended by security, so that was excellent. But this year, it's Dow Hits the Streets with a twist. Let's roll the video.
Good morning, Emory Weiner. Head of school Stuart Dow here, 2023, August of 2023. It is so insanely hot. Well, I don't know why we live in this town. So this video, as you know, historically is called Dow Hits the Streets. Okay, so I'm on the streets of downtown. You know what? No one's here. No one is on the streets. Do you know why? Because we live in a furnace, in an oven. It is not sensical. Anyway, okay, it's our home. We love it. Let's move forward. So right behind me, that is called the Wells Fargo Plaza, 1000 Louisiana. Decades ago, that is where I spent my professional life. I am so much happier now at 9825 Stella Link than I was when I was here, despite a beautiful view that I had from that building, and I get to work with y'all and do a different kind of work. Anyway, so what's the work we're doing this year? Well, this year's theme, as you know, is the power of we. We, a community, a diverse, beautiful, inclusive, loving, supportive, sometimes challenging, community, the power of we. And so now, this year, as I hit the streets, or more specifically go below the streets, because the one thing they have down here in Houston are tunnels. Why? Because it's uninhabitable on the streets. So people downtown who work here, they go underground into these fabulous tunnels. That's where we're going to go this year to talk to people about this year's theme, the power of we. All right, here we go, into the tunnels. So when would you say is the first time that you felt like you were really part of a community?
Really part of a community, probably in my martial arts school.
Wow, tell me about that.
Well, so I started martial arts back when I was about, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old. And I've done it my whole life back in Beaumont. And that's basically the group of people that I grew up with, I competed with. Competition is a really big thing for me. I'm a coach too.
Yeah.
I really feed off of groups and teams and that kind of environment to create a family.
Honestly, I can't think of a time that I haven't had a community of people around me, either family or friends or connections, college, sorority, work, coworkers.
Talk to me about when you have felt part of a community and what it felt like being part of a we, a group.
It felt empowering. It felt I was enriched, supported. I felt valued.
I felt at a place where, people who understood me and provided me with the resource that I needed to be successful.
Well, let's start. What is your name?
Annie.
Hi, Annie. I'm Stuart. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Where did you get that balloon? That is an awesome balloon. Hey, you gotta come closer. I'm not.
Today was bringing your kid to work today, and so they had to do fun things at Mama's work, and so I got to get a balloon.
Oh, that is excellent. What does your mama do?
She works for a company.
Yeah, okay. That's a good job if you can get it. When we're done talking, would you show me one move, please? Just one.
On the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just one. I just need one. Because I got 4 brothers and 3 kids. I gotta show something. I gotta, you know what I'm saying? Just.
Oh, you want to show them?
I don't want to hurt them badly. Just a little. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's kind of dangerous.
All right. Every community faces challenges sometimes. How do you work through that?
Definitely elevating those concerns. I think you can't really solve a problem unless people know about it, and you kind of bring it up in a respectful way, of course. In order to voice that and for something to get better, you have to know what the problem is and try and get to the root cause of what it is and then tackle it.
As human beings, we're all complex, right? We all have different maybe viewpoints and different, things that life experiences as well that might mold us to be the person that we are.
What do you think is the most important quality in being a good friend? Like, what makes a really good friend?
Your friendship.
Yeah, and what should you do to make sure you have a nice friendship with other people?
Be nice to them.
You should be nice to them. Have you ever, though, gotten mad at a friend?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you want to talk about that or no?
No.
I don't blame you. When you got mad, it's probably something they did, right?
No.
What happened? And just between you and me.
It's about playing with my friends.
Uh-huh. Were they not playing nicely?
No.
Or did they like get rough with their hands or something?
No.
Did they not give you enough time on the monkey bars?
No.
Do you like the monkey bars?
No.
You don't? Who doesn't like the monkey bars, Andy?
I don't.
All right, fair enough.
I feel like if there's a disconnect in any group where people are not communicating, there becomes an issue with being able to get a job done. Diversity, so whether it's diversity within gender roles or diversity within ethnic groups, or whether it's diversity in like your different areas of expertise. All those different types of groups can bring different experiences, whether it's professionally or whether it's just from their life experiences to the group to accomplish goals and get
That is well said. What's the most important quality in making sure that people still feel connected, even if they disagree or they're upset?
Communication, 100%. Agreed.
Okay, JJ, that's your name, right? Okay, now hold on. You were just so loud and energetic. I need to see that JJ again, okay?
JJ.
There we go. Okay, JJ, what do you think is important to be a good friend? What do you have to be? What do you have to do to really be a good friend?
Be kind.
It's perfect. Okay.
Seriously, y'all been doing
Yeah.
this.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if you caught one of the last interviewees, the woman who was sitting on the couch, who talked about diversity in the workplace. She worked for Centerpoint, and she talked about how actually that makes teams stronger. And she's right. But I also want you to think about this. There's lots of different kinds of diversity, right? Of course, we need to be sensitive to and embrace the ideas of racial diversity, religious diversity, cultural diversity, right? Gender diversity, socioeconomic diversity, meaning whether you have money or not so much money, right? There's also diversity about the way we think. There's people who are really good students, there's people who struggle, there's people who learn different ways, there's people who are great at sports, other people who are great on stage and with music. And the beautiful thing about a community is when you recognize the value of all of those different kinds of distinctions, right? So I want you to think about that as we build this we that we call Emory. Now, if you are an upper school student, which you all will be, 8th graders in a year and 2 and 3 years, right? Suddenly you'll be on the other side of the campus. You will experience an annual tradition where I do an assembly, what you guys call Kala, on the upper school side they call Ma'amad, and I devote it to a singer named Elton John, because since I was a little kid, I love Elton John. Upper school students might think that, like, man, is the only singer Dow listens to Elton John? And the answer is not at all. I love music. I wish I were a better musician, but I love music, and I love all kinds of music. I love pop, I like rock, I like jazz, I like classical. I even like some kind of country music. I really like different kinds of music, right? And I've been to lots of concerts. I've been to Elton John multiple times. I've also been to Aerosmith, and I've been to the Grateful Dead. I've even been to Madonna. I've been to a lot of really big, great concerts. But in addition to Mexico, which I already told you about this past summer, I also went to Kansas City this past summer. And that was to see a different concert. Next slide, please. And the reason I ended up at this concert was because my oldest daughter, Eleanor, I knew she wanted to be able to come to Mexico with us because she's a gymnast and she's a senior, so she's all about college applications. And in fact, I knew that we were doing a college tour with her. And so I decided, you know what? Maybe I should take her to this concert. And I think you're familiar with the singer. Next slide, please. It's this woman, right? So what I did is I looked at Taylor Swift's tour, and I was like, oh wait, Taylor Swift is playing in Kansas City, and Eleanor and I are supposed to be in St. Louis the very next day. Kansas City and St. Louis are 3 hours apart. Let's try to do this. Now, by the way, I want to be honest with you. If you had asked me in June, not July, June, Mr. Dow, what do you know about Taylor Swift? I would have gone, I don't know. I think she's a singer. She's apparently like really big. Both my girls are obsessed with her. That's really all I knew, okay? But because I knew my girls were obsessed with her, because I knew my oldest one wanted to be able to go on our family vacation, I thought maybe I could see if I could get tickets to the concert. Now, I have to tell you, little did I know what a nightmare that would be, trying to get tickets to this concert. Because, I don't know if you're familiar with the expression underworld, but there's like this underworld of people devoted to Taylor Swift. And it's a crazy, dark, bizarre underworld. And I decided I've got to figure out how to get tickets. So I started logging on to what they now call X, they used to call Twitter, right? So I have a Twitter account. I started following all these Taylor Swift concert people, these tickets and the Eras Tour stuff. And then I did it on Facebook. And then I did it in TikTok. I never used TikTok, but now I've got a TikTok Taylor Swift account or whatever, right? And I did Instagram. And I was in touch with these people all over the world trying to get tickets to Taylor Swift, July 8th, Kansas City, right? But I knew that there were scammers out there. And you know what a scammer is? Scammer is someone who's going to say, oh, I have tickets, but they're not going to actually give you the tickets. They're going to take your money, and then they're just going to disappear. And I knew that was out there. So I prepared myself, because I'm a student like y'all, so I read what do they do and how you avoid it, right? And I have to tell you, man, those scammers, they're good. I don't mean good people. I mean they're good scammers. They're good at being bad, right? That's what they were. So they would do things like this. They'd think, hey, Stuart, I understand you want to have tickets with your daughter. I'm like, well, that's so friendly. That's so nice. I had calls through Instagram from a different part of the world. I didn't know you could call people through Instagram. Apparently you can, right? My phone rings and she goes, hi, I understand you want tickets for July 8th. I'm like, yes. Okay? So they do all these things to make you think they're going to sell you legitimate tickets. But, because I had prepared myself, I knew that at the very end, they would do this little trick. They would say, oh, by the way, well, whatever you pay me, even if you only pay half now and half later, could you do it through this thing called PayPal Friends and Family? And it sounds lovely. Except that the reason they wanted me to do that is because once I sent money that way, I could never get it back. If you use a different part of PayPal called Goods and Services, it offers the buyer protection. And they didn't want the buyer to have protection because they wanted to do something dishonest. It was the epitome of dishonest and uncaring, which is the opposite of what we're trying to build here, a culture and a community based on kindness and honesty and trust, the we. But that's not what the underworld of scammers was about. Next slide. But I did get tickets, right? And I have to tell you, when I got to that stadium full of 70,000 people, right? Most of them admittedly were girls and women, but not all, right? In a stadium that's usually full of boys and men doing football, not all, right? Very different kind of energy, but this was one of the most extraordinary experiences I've had because that community, there was a connection, there was an empathy, a feeling, there was this impassioned energy. Complete strangers would talk to each other and be friendly, and you know what they would do? They'd give out friendly bracelets. Yes, I got one. Mine, of course, says Swifty Dad, right? But now that I have listened to hours and hours of Taylor Swift, actually, during the whole college road trip with my daughter, it was days and days of Taylor Swift. I can tell you about her songs, I can tell you about her albums, I can tell you about the little Easter eggs tricks she does, right? But I can also tell you about the empowering social message that she's helping communicate to girls and to women. And I will admit, not with any sense of embarrassment, Stu Dow is a Swiftie, all right? Now, you're about to hear a beautiful song. One written, of course, performed most famously by Taylor Swift. And it's going to be sung by one of our very talented singers named Evelyn Burke. And the song is called Invisible String. And as Evelyn is singing, I want you to think about that idea of an invisible string. The subtle, often not visible chords that connect us. How everything that each one of us does or says impacts others and creates the character of our community. Please give it up for Senior Evelyn Burke. Evelyn? you, everyone. Also, give it out for Mr. Shine and Ms. Clark, who are playing behind her. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you guys very much. So you heard speaker and member of the faculty earlier. You're going to hear two more. This is senior Eli Carpus and upper school Spanish teacher Dr. Bruno Rios. Please give it up first for Eli and then afterwards Dr. Rios. Eli?
So cool.
I couldn't believe it was happening. Empty spaces appeared throughout my house as my stepdad, and my step-siblings moved into a new house. There were times where I wanted to sit alone and be sad, because this new reality felt so surreal. Though during this time I felt isolated, my family was still there for me and encouraged me to keep going. This uncomfortable feeling was and still is strange, but a constant remained during a time of unexpected variables. We as a family were legally disbanded, but we did not want to be separated. We knew it would be best for everyone if we stuck together. Now, as a family, married or not, we are still together. We still have our regular family dinners and celebrate each other with positivity and with love. Because we are just happy to be together, even if we share different residences. This has allowed me to succeed in ways I would otherwise have not. Now, I admit there are many moments as a student and as a general human being that I have no desire to do anything and would rather sit alone in my bed watching TV. Whether speculating on a psychological or a statistical standpoint, working together is better and benefits each one of us. So, even through the all-nighters we're going to have to pull this year for the random English assignment due the next day, or the morning sports practices that we just don't want to be a part of, doing it together with our classmates, with our teammates, and with our friends, it's better than doing it alone. Here at Emory, there's always someone who can help you. Friends, faculty, coaches, even Miss Tracy. We have all these resources available to us right here at Emory and in our community. So why not use them? So, regarding the power of we as a family, by blood, by team, by our friends, by our community, a first one, second one, or mixed one, we are stronger together. Each one of us has the power to control our lives, to be part of a greater we. The question is, will we? Thank you.
So, I left home a month before my 19th birthday. After helping me set up a room that became my own during college, Mom and Dad were heading back home while I was staying in a new city, living by myself for the first time. We took 2 different cabs that day, me going to campus and them heading back to the airport. At the light, my parents were coincidentally still next to us. Through the window, I saw my father crying, while on the other hand, I felt happy about starting a new chapter in my life. He was mourning something that I couldn't understand back then, that I only understand now. The unbearable fear of something that has changed for good. The promise was always to go back, and I did. I came back home every summer and every winter break. I still do. But every time home became more and more uncanny. A place both the same and different, changed and unchanged in my memory. Eventually, especially after I moved to the United States, that unfamiliar belonging became a country, a place that is always an in-between. It's an odd thing, really, an irrational fear of losing that home for this one. After almost 2 decades from that summer in Monterrey where I started living on my own, I am becoming a U.S. citizen this month. And that is odd as well. Question number 3 out of the 100 in the naturalization test reads, the idea of self-government is in the first 3 words of the Constitution. What are these 3 words? We, the people. But my question is, who is this we? A we requires a them, a non-people, a people from a different place that is not here, a people from a different race that is not we. But belonging is like a shirt that never fits well, always too loose or too tight. And in the complicated history of this country and my own, I have mostly been in the them category. I was the odd kid in high school who liked metal and preferred to stay and read instead of going out. The working class student in a wealthy private college. The Mexican who was questioned by customs and immigration almost every time. The other whose brown skin meant danger. There's this idea that we are automatically part of this imagined community, a sort of net that embraces us all in the same way just because we live somewhere. That is obviously not true for the immigrant, the African American, the indigenous, the Jew. For us, this means a conditional performance of who we are, a we with an asterisk. But it is also this complexity what makes us part of a diverse community. What unites us is not our individual identity, but a duty to others, a common debt. We are with each other as long as we maintain that unpayable debt with our family, our friends, and complete strangers. After all these years, I've also gained this home. A place where I've learned to love my first home again. A place where I met my wife and got friends that still make fun of my English even though it is better than theirs. Here is where the only family I have is the people I choose to love, and gracefully they love me back for the most part. A place with all of you in it, my students, my friends, a country we're choosing to stay in. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rios, and thank you, Nikolai. So we're almost done. We have one fabulous last song, but before that last song, I want to share a few more ideas based on 2 essays that I read this past summer. Next slide, please. The first is from the gentleman on the left, named Rabbi David Wolpe, and the next is from the author and the philosopher named David Foster Wallace. Here's what the rabbi wrote. After 26 years of being a rabbi, as I approach retirement, I have come to several realizations. All of us are wounded and broken in one way or another. Those who don't recognize it in themselves or in others are more likely to cause damage and to hurt others than those who realize it and try to rise through the brokenness. This is what binds a community. No religious tradition, certainly not my own, says the rabbi, looks at an individual and says, there, you're perfect. It is humility and sadness and striving that raise us, doing good that proves the tractability of the world and its openness to improvement. And it's faith that allows us to continue through the shared valleys. The other gentleman, in an extraordinary graduation talk at a college, David Foster Wallace, told this story, a parable. Next slide, please. There are two young fish, swimming along. And they came across an older fish, swimming the other way. The older fish nodded and said, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" The two young fish just continued swimming. When one finally turned to the other and said, "Water? What's that?" The Professor Wallace goes on to explain that one of the greatest challenges that every one of us, myself, faces is to be aware of your surroundings, your immediate surroundings, as they really are, and to notice everything that you sometimes will take for granted. He also talks about doing what he calls a reset on our default settings. Default settings, like when you buy a phone or something, it's already come with certain settings. And Wallace says we also, people, have these default settings. One of them is that almost everything we do and say comes through our ego. It's our perspective and our experience that determines how we feel, think, or even act. For example, I know you're too young to drive, but I promise when your parents are driving or your older siblings, because this happens to me too, and they're stuck in horrible traffic on the freeway, they get mad because the traffic is caused by others. Other people are the traffic. But guess what? For other people, we are the traffic in that moment. The rabbi says this: the world right now, the outside world, is so polarized, meaning divided and angry. You can't even hear the other side. And so the rabbi talks about the importance of listening to better understand people around us. He wrote, "We who often don't even know ourselves, we believe we understand others, but we must always be reminded that each person is a world, that these caricatures that we see of each other on social media, they're just that. They're caricatures. They are a small slice of the vastness, the depth, and the complexity of each person." And this is really true, guys, in a community our size. If we follow what both Rabbi Wolpe and David Foster Wallace say, we can go from hundreds of individual me's to a singular, powerful, collective we. One that values and really takes advantage of all the different talents on this campus and provides all of us not just with a social circle, but a source of strength and support that comes from being a family. And now for this last song, which relates to what I just said, please welcome basically everyone who's been in the OC, the opening ceremony, up until now. We've got Claire Perry on vocals and Bella Phelps and Ellen Burke also on vocals. JVC will be singing, y'all know her from theater. Elaine will be playing keyboards again. Layla will be on guitar. Zach Robinson also guitar. Micah Levin will be playing bass. Aiden Cohen on guitar. Sonny Bell back there on drums. And then Audrey and Eli and Bruno and April and Kathy and Kelly and Josh. Everyone, please give it up for the last number on this opening ceremony. We're going to thank them again in a second, but there's also a bunch of students who do stuff behind the scene, right there in the rafters or the sound booth. Please join me in thanking Alexis Schuss, Toby, Kimberly, Finn Robinson, William Coutray, Shai Paransky, Caden Warren, Gray Warren, Emma Garza, and 8th grader Ethan Stolberg. How about that? All of my colleagues, all of my faculty and staff who spend summer days helping with this, thank you guys. Y'all are just the best. JVC especially. God bless you. Kelly and Shyman and Clark, 2 of our faculty who presented. Y'all are just amazing. Thank you for that. And these seniors who spend their last days of summer getting ready for this. Let's give it up for them one more time. Y'all have a fantastic year, and we will see you in the next few days. Bye, guys. Have a great year. This is always